Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining the PIIB webinar, Charting the Course, Strategic Growth in 2025. We first want to express our appreciation for your time, especially given the challenges many are facing during the Los Angeles fires. Our thoughts are with you, and we are grateful you could be here with us today. Introduce our panel: Rachel McClurg, PIIB's Network Relations and Sales Manager; Matt Davis with GDI Insurance; Charles Dahl with Omega Pacific Insurance Solutions. Rachel, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
All right. Thank you, Carrie. And thank you, Matt and Charles, for meeting with us today. We will just kind of jump right into it, so we're sensitive of everybody's time. So the first, well, actually, we'll go over what we're going to go over. We're going to do strategic planning for 2025, growth strategies, challenges and opportunities, and advice for agencies. Those will be the 4 topics we're going to cover. So we're going to start with strategic planning for 2025. And let's go ahead and start with Charles. What key trends or shifts in the market are shaping your agency's strategy for 2025?
Well, thank you. And until a couple of weeks ago, I would say I was pretty optimistic on the personal lines market, and that coming in those changes. That's going to change a little bit. Commercial market for us, I see, where we're going to try to manage, we're going to see the wholesale market kind of, or the admitted market kind of open up, hopefully a little bit, where, for the last 3 years, we've been placing a lot of things in the wholesale market. And I think we'll be bringing that back a little bit as we go into 2025. I think the carriers are going to start to open up. We're already starting to see that a little bit with the age of buildings and things like that. So our growth strategy is going to be monitoring that, what markets are opening up, and trying to bring those back to the admitted markets.
Okay. And what about you, Matt? What do you have to add on to that?
I'm going to piggyback on a lot of what Charles was saying and really go with, we're in the process of our planning, so we're a little late this cycle around. We actually have our final leadership offsite next week, but we are looking at similar thing in the E&S marketplace. I'm a little more believing that E&S is going to be here to stay. I mean, growing up in the business, we've always done a lot of E&S ourselves, so going into that space hasn't been much of an issue. Where I know for a lot of personal lines focused agencies, it has been. I think you're going to see capacity issues in personal lines in the preferred marketplace. I think some of the smaller carriers, though, are going to really open up. It's going to depend on like micro regions, similar to what other industries have done and what we've seen in our place too. I mean, there's no redlining in California, but we're essentially seeing redlining across the board. So you almost have to look for like the green light areas and find that to grow. And I think direct carrier partnerships is going to be key. So I appreciate that like volume commitments with PIIB are not as onerous for us on the independent side as if we were on standalone basis on contracts. But we also need to, as agency owners, focus on our relationship with each carrier and our underwriters, because it's going to become preferential treatment time if you haven't already noticed. And so a lot of our internal training and expansion for our team is looking that way this year.
Okay. And then getting into kind of building on that and getting into growth strategies, how kind of in detail are you preparing your agency to adapt to potential industry changes at this time?
You asking me or Charles?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead. Go, Matt.
Darn it. I was hoping to punt it back.
Okay, that's fine. Go, Charles.
No, I'll go. I'll just get it out of the way. So we're looking at internally, really a lot of our growth strategies is going to be focusing our own resources. So, I mean, everybody can complain and moan about hiring and how challenging that is, which it is, especially when you're trying to find key talent, because the world flattened a lot in the last few years, a lot more than it had been. So we're competing with, New York, we're competing with Florida, Texas, California, and various areas for talent. So what we found is, we have a lot of clientele in our book of business that really we should have been considering divorcing over the years. Mm-hmm. And so chronic late pays, chronic walk-ins to chat and, have coffee, chronic complaint clients, those that have really used up a lot of resource that we didn't really necessarily need. It was a little excess. With the way the economy is going, and especially now with the latest fire issues, we're anticipating a lot more work even on our non-directly impacted fire clients. Those property-heavy clients that are in the Central Valley, California, or even in neighboring states are going to need a lot more a lot more attention from us and resource. So we're focusing on how do we train and prepare our team now for what's most likely coming 30, 60, 90 days from now and beyond. New business has never been a huge issue for us. If anything, it's been saying no, and especially since about 2020, learning to say no has been critical. So continuing to learn to say no at the right time. And really, we coin it. We have two types of customer here. We have a client who truly believes in what we offer and what our value is, and then we have transactional customers. We want to never take on another transactional customer, and only take on true insurance clients.
I think that's a great tip across the board for everybody, no matter kind of what industry you're in. Charles, what about you?
Well, Matt pretty much said it all. I would have to piggyback on that. One thing we're doing on an internal agency is definitely we're getting our cadences more organized and more efficient. One move we made this last year is we moved some of our service work to Staff Boom and that's worked out well for us. And it's allowed us to the people that are here in our office get rid of some of the task oriented stuff that someone else can do. So that's really helped us. The other thing though is like Matt said, we identified who we want as our client and how many employees. So the 100 or less is who we're going to go after. We're not going after the larger accounts. So we're identifying that. What markets do we want to align ourselves with, and what type of business do we want to go after? Because like Matt said, it's we found ourselves doing a lot of work for 20% of our clients, and trying to change that this year is one of our big focuses.
And Matt, real quick too, I know Charles mentioned that he uses like Staff Boom to kind of give some of those, tasks that don't need to be done in the office or taking up people's time. Are you utilizing anything like that with your team?
We've tried Staff Boom. I can't give a fair evaluation of it. We did not give enough time and attention to the project when we did it. So the failure was on GDI's part, I hate to admit. We're looking at re-engaging a similar solution, either re-engaging with Staff Boom or with another one, or just going direct with VAs. Because there is a lot of work that could be done. We have been successful with local interns as well. So unfortunately, our local state university is not very helpful. There's really adversarial relationship between them and the local community, but the community college, private universities, and the local especially the local high schools, you get some academic scholarship recipients that are going to like Ivy League schools. They're trying to pad their resume. You can get them on board pretty quick, especially if you get key customers engaged to get them some, a good marketing project with a large customer or something like that, and then you can get a lot of valuable work.
That's a good idea. All right. And kind of moving on along the lines of growth strategies, are you considering acquisitions or expanding into new geographic markets, and why or why not? Let's start with Charles.
Always open for, and that's maybe where people call me crazy, but we're always trying to grow, and we're always looking for acquisitions. I'm a believer that if you did the same as you did the year before, you're failing. So we're definitely looking at and we're doing that both ways. We're doing it through acquisitions of what's out there, and we're doing it internally as well. So for example, we opened up a Sacramento office about 4 years ago internally, and you don't get the write-off revenue stream that you would through a merger and acquisition, but it seems to, after 4 years, kind of even itself out. You get to the same result. Maybe a little bit more on the merger and acquisition side, but you get to the same result. So we're doing that both. As far as looking at other markets, our goal is to grow in the market. We continue to grow in the market we have, but we're also looking at Reno out of state for a few reasons. One is the labor rates in California will continue to go up, and they don't seem to be going up as much as other states. And, even though we are using Staff Boom, human capital is huge for us. There's just not as many laws in Nevada if you research right now on employers. So, and we're looking at that marketplace too, because it's a growing city. It's going gangbusters, and we think it's a good opportunity for us. So yes, we are looking at going outside our circle.
Awesome. What about you, Matt? What about your agency?
Yes, so we are looking at acquisition and expanding geographically. So we did plant our flag in the Dallas-Fort Worth area about 2 years ago. So we've had boots on the ground since. we are actually just finalizing the go live date for acquiring a PNC agent and his book of business. They're probably going to close well before the end of February, and then a group benefits book as well that should be closing by Valentine's Day. So that'll get us to a critical mass of about 700, well, with the organic, about 800,000 in commission and fee revenue in Dallas. Hopefully by the end of Q1, we'll be on a 12-month roll with that. Different geographic areas has been interesting. So I do appreciate the way Charles is looking at Reno, because there's a lot of things to look at just besides, oh, let's get out of California and finding that area. DFW is a nice area for us because it's large. However, it's not the preferred area for any PNC market when it comes to property.
Yeah.
If you look at California and you have from the Elk Grove to Bakersfield little region, that kidney bean shape there, you have the same thing between San Antonio and Austin and Texas, we found. So we just decided that overall globally for our organization, we will take on personal lines. Our personal lines organically grew from point to point January 1st of last year to this year about 22% in PIF count. You can't really look at revenue or premium right now because it's all skewed. And then we acquired a chunk too last year. But our focus is commercial. Commercials now, if you include group benefits with it, it's about 80. I think last year we ended just over 85% of our organization is commercial based. But finding that, and then also we're looking for books. So before we were on the call, there was just an offhand discussion. I mentioned that we looked at a Safeco book of business. We are looking at just individual books if it can benefit us on a weighted average loss ratio basis, get us more capacity and preference with carriers. I don't want to go into anything beyond. I mean, Safeco, we all know, has throttled pretty much everybody, but there's other carriers out there that if you have a good enough book of business and you can show the right growth rate, they will unrestrict you compared to most of their other agents. So sometimes you have to follow their lead and listen to them on where they want you to, and it works out.
Perfect. And then kind of just building on that, and this is the last kind of question in the growth strategies part, what other methods have you found successful for scaling and growing your agency? Anything that we haven't already really touched on?
Well, one thing we use we use it a lot, is we actually have 2 in-house telemarketers to scale our business. And believe me, it's a lot of calling. It's a lot of, in fact, we actually turned that into its own company where we call for other insurance agencies now and things like that. We've been doing that. But telemarketing seems, it's about a 15% close ratio. It's not high. And you're only getting an appointment about every 4 hours. But if you stick with it, that's year over year, that's done a nice return for us. And our goal is just to break even the first year and then get that retention to where we see our growth. And so telemarketing has worked out really good for us on the business to business. We really don't push personal lines, and that's a switch we made last year. We'll do personal lines by if it's a commercial client or someone refers it into us. But we decided with the market in California and things like that, if we did all this advertising, they call us in for a quote, where we're going to put them with. We're limited by the different carrier restrictions, and Mercury seems to be writing a lot right now, or we're successful with them. But we have become concentrated on commercial mostly. That's the lead.
Okay. Well, I give props to the telemarketers because I myself have a very hard time just picking up the phone and cold calling people. Something I need to work on. What about you, Matt?
I don't think anyone likes cold calling. I've just started calling select agency owners for acquisition and networking purposes. And yesterday was the start of it. And even sending the cold email to people that I know sucks. But for us growing, we started looking at other methods. So we've been looking at our target product mix of what we want to be selling. So is there a product or a niche of a product, not necessarily a niche of a clientele base or an industry that we could focus on, and that one line of business be our lead and our win for not just one type of business, but a heterogeneous book of clientele. If you notice, I'm kind of using some group captive terminology because that's one of our niches that we've been going with. But it can also be then, what is the niche that we're going after? And you really have to be detailed on that. Where Charles said, hey, look, we're basically what Charles's description was earlier in the call. leads me to believe he's looking at middle market, but he's not looking at going after the alphabet houses and the multinational brokers accounts. He's looking at going after, we call it the mini middle, right? Qualifying the middle market up to, you know, maybe a couple $100,000 in premium, maybe slightly more. But you get to where we can provide that service and that benefit to the customer and still maintain our margins. When we go after 400 or 500 employee businesses, which we have a few, and yes, the revenue looks great, but if you look at your net margins, they suck. Because we just don't have capacity to offer this huge suite of services across 1,000 clients of that size. We only have, you know, half dozen. But basically, wherever we can do the meaningful and impactful work for our clients that actually alleviates workload for them, that allows us to provide that benefit. And then also, I believe that fee for service is going to become more of the norm for us. So any agents who are listening that have never charged a broker fee for any reason, or an additional services fee for something outside the scope of normal items, be prepared for it, because many of the products we're selling now are non-commissionable and we have to disclose our fee at the bottom line. So we need to put on our big boy and big girl pants and be ready to explain our compensation.
Okay, on to challenges and opportunities. So Charles, what challenges do you foresee for agency owners in 2025, and how are you preparing to overcome them? I mean, I think we've addressed this a little bit, but if there's anything to kind of add of what you foresee, we've talked about, you know, the personal lines markets and just rates and stuff like that. But is there anything to add on to that?
Well, I would, yeah, I think we've touched on it a little bit earlier. The challenge is, you know, it's going to be in personal lines, it's going to be this fire. It's going to be, you know, it's going to be the Department of Insurance reacting and trying to figure out if we're even going to open up in 2026, like some people had some carriers had previous planned to do. So that's going to be a challenge of just the communication, getting communication out to our current clients on, you know, and updating them as much as we can with valid information, because there's a lot of information, as we all know, going out there right now, and it's almost like they're throwing darts and seeing if it sticks. But our challenge is going to be have a good communication process. And then it's those efficiencies, like I talked about before, you know, making sure our staff, our cadences are all in line for 2025. That's about it. I mean, you know, 2024 was a good year for us. It was a really good year for us, but it was also a hard year. In that I tell people I feel like the dentist. No one wants to see a dentist, but they need a dentist. And
that's a great analogy.
Yeah. So, and I think 2025 is going to be the same thing, even though we had hopes of it opening back up. I think we're just in for another year like that. So it's just a matter of how do we get better at what we did in 2024.
And Matt, do you have anything to add on to that? Or the next question would be sharing a recent example of innovative solutions that helped you navigate through a tough market situation, which could kind of play on to that if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I can kind of hit both. I fully agree with Charles on that. I think capacity and market constriction is going to be capacity reduction, market constriction, and then it's going to be laser focused. In personal lines, if we have any opening, it's going to be laser focused on certain zip codes and sections of it's going to be down to like sides of the street, like we've been seeing. It's going to be just only certain types of items. And I go back to when I first started in insurance in 2002, 3. You know, I remember going door to door for home and auto, and it's like I would go in certain neighborhoods that had just been built because I didn't even have to go to a rater. I knew that if a house was under 1,800 square feet built in the last 6 years, CIG was going to be approximately X number of dollars per foot of premium. I can estimate on the fly and just go quote it. We're going to have to be that dialed into, okay, I'm only going after a certain product. Another challenge we're going to have is I'm not sure where profit sharing is going. I don't think it's going to be a blanket contract like we've seen in the past. I really think that it's going to be more year to year, similar to what we see with California State Fund. It's going to be year to year offered, at least with some of the smaller, especially with the smaller carriers, for the targets they have short term. So if they want to grow a certain type of thing, this or that, I think we're going to see that challenge. So us as agents need to, if any of us are still looking at profit sharing as being, oh, that's my profit for the year, I'm going to hold on to that and spend every other bit of my commission and fee revenue. We need to include that into our overall budget and not just as a profit piece. What we've done, I mean, we haven't done anything super innovative this year beyond what we've been trying to do anyway. One of the biggest things we've noticed that in the lending space, You know, we have a fair amount of SBA loans out there from various book acquisitions. We found traditional banks, community banks, are actually offering our type of business pretty reasonable terms. We're looking at cutting our interest rate by over a third on even after our SBA rate reduced, and getting a shorter term. So it's going to save us a huge amount of money on interest and principal payments up front monthly, and then cut off a number of years on our payment term. So I think, you know, be open to not just operational efficiencies, but financial and other ones as well.
And one thing, I didn't really, we actually just launched 2 new products, and it's not insurance, but it's another line we could sell. So for the personal lines, we just launched a home warranty product. So we are going to go out to all of our clients and try to sell home warranties to them. It's something that, you know, you usually buy it when you buy a house and you stick with it. But now there's a standalone product out there that we're using to sell that. And on the commercial line, we actually just rolled out January 1st. My wife had a payroll company, and she's going to retire in a year or two. So we took it over, and we're going to start selling payroll services to our clients. And the reason is ADP and Paychecks, they're killing it with workers' comp right now. And so we're just going to do the reverse, where we go out and sell the payroll product. And our niche is going to be, we'll take care of all your workers' comp reporting for you, because the payroll company has all the payroll information. And so we're going to do your pay-as-you-go monthly audits to the carrier. It's just a simple download. And then we're going to take care of their annual audit for them, as long as they give us the permission. So those are going to be our 2 wedges for 2025.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And we have a home warranty and we use it all the time. So that's definitely, I feel
They
like
actually want you to. It's the only insurance company. It's not an insurance product, but it's the only product where they want you to turn in claims. It's like weird.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. And so kind of wrapping it up a little here. So advice for agencies. What advice would you give to agencies just beginning to explore growth opportunities outside of their local area?
Well, if it's merger and acquisition, be able to say no. That's what my advice. In fact, I had one earlier this year with Tiffany and Matt, and it looked good on the conversation and stuff. But after I talked, and Matt had previous experience. After I talked with him, I realized it wasn't that great of a deal, so I passed on it. But you know, you can't buy anything. You can't buy everything that comes in front of you. You definitely need to do your due diligence and make sure it makes smart. And the other thing I think you need to do is find a wedge. You know, there's 250 agents in PIIB, but there's thousands of agents in California. What's going to make you different? And we're doing it with our wedge of the payroll service this year in Armadillo. Those are 2 things that the home warranty. Sorry, those are 2 things that a lot of the other agencies are presenting. And just find a wedge to get in there in front of the decision maker.
Matt?
I think I agree with Charles, especially on the acquisition. So I'm just going to go kind of more the organic expansion. If you're going to look at moving into a different territory, do your research, but then you can't dip your toe in and go halfway in. You either have to do it or not. We found that, you know, in certain geographic areas, like I'll pick DFW, if we wanted to go into personal lines, we would have to have brick and mortar. We'd have to have a domestic license, not an out-of-state license. We'd have to have a domestic principal or equity partner there for some of the carriers. So, you know, you have to decide what you're going to do, and you really have to do the investment of time and resources. Usually the biggest resource is time, or your team's time. And then focus on what you can get the quick win with that's going to be able to stay on the books. So find something there, like Charles's payroll service. I mean, man, once you get that in there, you got to talk about an additional service that clients are married to in the commercial space as their payroll provider. If you can get somebody on with that and you show that it's just smooth and easy, I don't see how, you know, we're only 25 minutes down the road. None of my guys, if we were to try to compete with that, are going to have an easy time doing that once those things are done. Yeah. And that's most of it. And then just know why you're going into that area. Don't just do it because, I need to get the hell out of California, which many of us probably want to diversify our book with, but
yeah,
know why.
No, and I that's very smart. And I will say, coming from the PIIB side, when we're, you know, talking to prospects or bringing on new affiliates, and we kind of ask what their plans are, or maybe it's someone trying to get out of California and they're like, well, we're going to go to Florida. And I'm like, well, that's that's difficult as well. So just make sure if you're making a plan and doing your research, and then as Matt said too, like don't go halfway in, like make your plan, do all the research, and then execute that plan. And that's where we usually see with, you know, the agencies. I don't know. We might, you guys might have been so thorough that there are just no
Yeah,
questions today.
or they're asleep.
It was a lot.
they-
No. It was a lot of really great information though. So
Yes, we've had a couple of people respond back and saying great data, great stuff. Thank you guys for sharing the information.
good. I'm not seeing that. Maybe you're just getting it, Carrie. I
Carrie's
didn't
just
see
making
me.
it up.
Oh.
To make us feel good.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't see anything. Normally I
I
can
can
see stuff.
screenshot and prove it to y'all.
All right. Well, then if there's no questions, thank you both very much for joining us today.
Thank
And
you.
we are so thankful to have you as part of the PIIB family, and always open to collaborating and networking and working with the group. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Goodbye.
Have a great rest of your day.
All right,
Bye.
bye.
Bye.